Susan, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. If you wouldn't
You're
mind, go
welcome.
ahead and introduce yourself and then also introduce HostyMosty, your company.
Sure. My name is Susan Bisnoff. I am the founder and owner of a company called HostyMosty, which is a short-term property rental management company. We're full service. I've been doing this for almost a decade. The company was officially opened in 2017, going strong, 8, 9 years later. But I started doing it in my house in 2016. So I was renting rooms out in short term, for a decade. So I've been dealing with the platforms for a really long time, and I feel very fortunate that I am still able to, trudge forward because when I started, there were not a lot of players in my industry, and as you can see, it's changed. And
Mm.
I had many people come to me and ask me, hey, you want to scale, we'll give you X money and, you'll get 49% of your company. And I'm like, no, I
Yeah.
don't want anybody taking control of my company. I'm very happy with, my 15. I get like it goes between 15 and 20 rentals. I get a couple, I lose one.
Mhm.
And I'm okay with it because the income is, believe it or not, steady, even in bad years. And this has not been a great year. The season's always great, but I've had this summer is very slow compared to other seasons. And the World Cup was supposed to be this big boom for business. It just wasn't.
Mhm.
And But anyway, so yeah, it was something that I just kind of pulled out of thin air because when I started renting rooms in my house, a friend said to me, "Oh, I have this studio. I have I have a studio in my house. I don't have time to do this. I have a full-time job." And he's like, "Would you help me with that?" And I started kind of thinking about it. I was like, "Is there a is there a
Mhm.
real business doing this?" So I started researching, and I really couldn't find a lot of companies in Miami. I found companies in other parts of the country, but there were very few, and except the big ones like Vacasa or Evolve, which are real just BS companies. They're just,
Mhm.
it's a corporate run money machine. They don't care about the property. They don't care what the reviews are. They just want to have the numbers. They just want
Right.
the huge amounts of properties, but they don't. You look at the ratings, and the properties are terrible. They're just not maintained, whatever. And they say, hey, we'll do full service as 10%, and it's just not true. And
Mhm.
I can go on and on about that stuff. So anyway, so I started, and it was like that slow wheel that one person referred me, then realtors started, coming to me. I went to a couple of, this is before COVID. So I was going to conferences, and I was going to, these local events and giving out my card and just say, this is what I do. Realtors are like, oh my God. He's like, I don't want to do this. Great. I've got clients for you. And I say, hey, I give referrals. Like, oh, I don't want your referral. You could just take care of my client. I'm happy just to do the sale. And,
Mhm.
so that's kind of how it started. And now I just always just a lot of referrals and um, people and then and now Airbnb has this co-host profile this co-host dashboard. So
Mhm.
if you are of a certain caliber, you can be on that, and I get a ton of requests on there.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it works. It does work.
Yeah.
I turn down a lot of business because I'm very particular about the caliber of the property and how they're maintained,
Mhm.
and whether or not I can make them money. Unless they're willing to spend money to like update their home. I just said I'm not your person because I'm just not going to take a property and throw up
Right.
this hideous apartment
Yeah.
just to have it online. It's just I won't do it. So
That's kind of that's a great business model, kind of being more particular in what you're taking as
very
opposed to just
particular.
quantity, right? You don't want to just take
Yeah.
anything and
I
you'd run into
turned
more
down
problems, I'm
business
sure.
all the time. I
Hmm.
do. I just
Yeah.
said, unless you're willing to renovate, I can't help you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's just because I know the competition, and I don't want to, especially if it's going under my account, I want the properties that I represent that's under Hosty Mosty's, brand and umbrella,
Hmm.
they better look good, and that is really where I strive to have that perfectionism because um we're really ultimately selling a photograph.
Hmm.
it comes down to the photograph catching the eye of the potential guest and grabbing them and then drawing them into the listing and then subsequently having that follow through with our response time and the hospitality and cleanliness and that's how it works and just keep the ratings up and that seems to
Hmm.
be the model that works great. I have a team that's been with me for a long time. I don't have a large team. I've had larger. I've let go of a couple of people and they're all virtual. My staff is all virtual
Hmm.
and we have 24/7 coverage. And yeah, I've had a couple of people that have been with me for years, and then it's all about the cleaning and then having the vendor list, and so far, knock on wood, it's just been I'm fortunate. I feel very fortunate that I'm able not to be an employee somewhere
Hmm.
because that was one of your questions, like what was the catalyst?
Right.
So I am a horrible employee and I got fired from a job back in 2015
Hmm.
and I said I can't work for anybody. It's just like I just can't be responsive to I can't handle the corporate world.
Hmm.
I can't handle that like like just answering to somebody else.
Right.
I realized I was like, wow, I really have to figure out something I could do myself. And then I was just playing around, doodling with names and wordplay and that's how I came up with HostyMosty. I created the logo and I was
Hmm.
just playing around with it and so the logo came to life and then I was just talking to a friend who was in hospitality and she said don't, and I was like, oh my God, do I have to do a business plan? Do I really have to do that? And she goes, girl, just create a website and get it out there. And
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, she's right. And so that's what I did. And when when I first did, I think, I did it myself. It was really very basic. And obviously things have, changed since then. And, I've upped my game a little bit. But I have to say, my website is kind of an afterthought in a sense because it's supposed to attract clients. I don't, yes, we get direct bookings, but that's
Hmm.
through another mechanism. I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain how the back end works with direct bookings because I've got software that I use. The software that is the place card holder, right, for the listings.
Hmm.
So that way we manage all the calendars and we have all the AI messaging and everything's automated. We've got everything is automated. As much as we can be automated,
Hmm.
we have, we have responses that are like already saved. So people ask almost any question, we already have the answer for it. Like,
Hmm.
okay, we know what they're asking that. Here's the answer. We catalog properties that kind of can identify as kind of the same type of situation that will arise.
Hmm.
So that's how we have sort of, kind of tighten the ship and made sure that it makes it as easy as possible. Of
Right.
course, there's always going to be hiccups. Of course, an AC is always going to break on a Saturday night at 10 o'clock, which is always so much fun. I was like, this never breaks on like a Wednesday at
Of
2,
course
right?
not. Yeah. It's always got to be the most inconvenient time,
So,
right?
you have to have like the emergency people that will take your phone call. And I have those people because I pay them right away. They show up for me. They're not cheap, but they go. And because, the two things are like our huge ones are like AC and plumbing. That's like you have to be completely like on top of that,
Hmm.
and that's been, how I've been sort of doing this and training my staff. We meet every week. We go through all the little hiccups, if any, we've had, anything that I want them to improve on, anything that, we could do better or make easier. Um, yeah,
I think
yeah,
that is important too, kind of just making sure you engage with your team constantly, right? It kind of creates
constantly,
that cohesion and that small team feel, that family feel. That's amazing.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
I give
so,
bonuses out, like if we've had a really great couple of months and 5 star, 5 star, 5 star, like I'll throw them some money and be like,
mhm.
keep it up. And so it motivates them to, show up. Well, I mean, they do show up, but I
Yeah.
make work logs. Like everybody has to provide a work log. They have to log in, log out. I have to know when they're coming on, when they're coming off. So, as these are things that you figure out as you move
Hmm.
along. Like I was, again, corporate world, I was only a part of for a very short time. I like just even SOPs, I'm like, wait, what's that? Oh, okay. So I
Yeah.
have to kind of do something about that. Right. I should have that in place. So these are the things
Yeah.
that I kind of just winged it and improvised and just, yeah, just evolved over time. And then I get great, these Google reviews from clients that just praise me, and it's just such a great feeling. Like I have a new client now. We just got a new listing. I do all the staging, and I actually there's a couple of questions. You want to ask me questions? I feel like I'm just talking.
No,
If
this
you
is
have
great.
all
No, keep
different
going.
questions,
Yeah. No, this is amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
We can transition. Yeah, this is perfect.
Okay, so you had asked like the background. How did I get here? Well,
Hmm.
I kind of explained that to you. I am a licensed real estate agent. I let go of my license back in 2008 when the financial crash happened. That all went bye-bye. Like I lost so much money. I lost a lot more than that. I mean, it was a real shit show. I mean, um, just personally, my marriage was falling apart, and then the financial crash happened, and it was just like, holy shit.
Hmm.
And I was getting divorced, and my brother was out in LA, and he said, Susan, why don't you try living in California? You've never spent time out here. Maybe the change will do you good.
Hmm.
And I was just like, well, nothing's keeping me here.
Hmm.
So I rented my house out, which I couldn't even afford to pay my mortgage. So I had to get a renter in there. Fortunately, I found a tenant
Hmm.
who could cover the mortgage, and I moved out to LA, and it was very hard to get a job. Like I was a fashion model for 30 years. That's kind of where my eye for photography comes from, I believe. And I was getting older. And when the crash happened, marketing was the first thing that was cut from any business. So there was just everything dried up. So
Hmm.
the real estate industry dried up, the marketing companies, any modeling gigs I was getting on the side because I was already 40 something. So, the business had already slowed down for me. And then all of a sudden, this is in 2008, smartphones weren't around still,
Hmm.
all that Instagram BS stuff that, I feel so bad for young women trying to do what I did 30 years ago, because I did very well as a fashion model, made very good money. I traveled all over the world. I was in pretty much any publication you can think of, and it was really just fly by the seat of my pants kind of thing. And I didn't have to think about, oh, how many followers do I have on Instagram?
Right. Yeah.
No, it's like you had a portfolio. You went to see a client, you had it face to face, none of these the online, you know, Zoom things or
Hmm.
self-cast stuff where you have to send a video in. You had to be there. And so that whole magical time in my life was really, a very unique experience because I didn't plan on being a model. I'm 5'10". So my mother, when I was 15, had taken me to see all the agents. I'm from New York originally.
Hmm.
And so we drove into the city when I was 15, and I went to see Elite, Wilhelmina, and Ford. They all said, nope, you can't do it. And I forgot about it. And I was like, okay. And then when I graduated high school, I applied to colleges, and I was going to go to the American University in DC for communications.
Hmm.
I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know. I had no clue. I had no focus. I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. All I knew was that I really liked foreign language, and the only class I enjoyed was my Spanish class in high school. I liked the teacher,
Hmm.
and I got good grades, and I said, you know what? Can I take a year, go to Spain, learn a language, and come back and go to school? And they're like, yeah, sure. Now, I want you to think about the time. So this is in 1983. There
Hmm.
was no internet. My parents said to me, well, you have to figure it out. Where are you going? So I called the embassy in New York, the Spanish embassy. They
Hmm.
mailed a list of schools in Spain, and they're like, here are the lists of schools that cater to foreigners. And I said to my parents, like, I don't know, where am I going? Like, and they were like, well,
Right.
just
Yeah.
pick one. So I picked a school in Valencia, and everybody's like, "You didn't go to Madrid? You didn't go to Barcelona?" I was like, "I don't know what I was
You're just
thinking." I like
yeah. So
Valencia, which is the third largest school, third largest city
mhm.
in Spain. I ended up in Valencia, and I got there, and when I was there, this is now, how long ago is this? This is, how old am I? I'm 62. So I was 19. Back then, nobody spoke English. Like
Hmm.
nobody spoke English. And I got there and I didn't understand anything. And I was like, holy shit, what am I doing here? I was living with a family that didn't speak English.
Yeah.
The teacher of the class didn't speak English. And you just like you were just like wandering around like like I don't know what the fuck I just did. And
Yeah.
for a month I sat in this classroom like I don't, am I staying? Am I going? I
Right.
don't, what am I doing here? So, I said, nope. it was a 3 month course, I think 3 months, something like that. I was like, I'm gonna stick it out.
Hmm.
If I get anything out of it, great. And like a month or so after I got there, um, I did meet young people that were lovely and I found somebody told me, oh yeah, all the teenagers they go over to this plaza and they all hang out there and go there and I just kind of wandered over there and it's like I'm like, hola,
Yeah.
soy soy americana, no hablo español. And they people were so lovely and welcoming and like we kind of all talk sign language like tú yo bailamos,
Oh,
vamos
that's
a la
pretty cool. Yeah.
discoteca,
Yeah.
that whole thing. And so that's kind of how I kind of immersed myself into the culture. And and then following that, about 2 months in, I was walking down the street and this guy comes up to me and he spoke English and he says, "Are you a model?" And I said, "No, no." I said, "No, no, I'm not a model. They told me I can't do that." And he said, "Well, I think you can. I am a scout for this agency in Barcelona. Here's
Hmm.
my card. Go see them, tell them I sent you. I'm going to call them and tell them you're coming. Get on the train and just go up to Barcelona. It's a 3 hour train ride. So I'm like, I had nothing to lose. Sure, why? I'll go to Barcelona for the day. So I got on the train, went up there, and I walked into this amazing, beautiful agency. It was like it was this like house that they transformed into this, a modeling agency. And
Hmm.
again, back then, no computers. So you had like all the composites on the wall, and they had wheels in the middle of the table with all the model whatever files, all their bookings, etc.
Hmm.
And I met the owners, and they were like, "Okay, we think you're great. Let's get some photographs taken." And I got my first job like that week, and I made $500 for 4 hours of work. Back then, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And
And
I
so
was
they
like,
just gave you basically an address in Barcelona to go to essentially. And
well, he
then,
says, here's my card.
yeah.
This is the name of the agency. You're going to go see this person. I'll let them know you're coming and just go.
Hmm.
They're there. They'll be expecting you. And I was just like, what do I have to lose,
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I was like, I just got on the train and went up there. And yeah, and everything was so cheap. I mean, to take a taxi across town was like 200 pesetas. Like do
Mhm.
them like it's like it was like $5, $3. It was like everything was so cheap. So anyway, yeah, so I got there and they had me working like within a week and I called my parents and I was like, I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna stay a little bit longer. And I started to speak the language. And like one day I finished the class. I went back to Valencia, I finished the
Mhm.
class, and I remember 3 months in, whatever, and I woke up and I realized that I dreamt in Spanish. I was like, oh my God, that I jumped in Spanish. And then I remember walking down the street and I heard these two old ladies talking in front of a window and I understood what they were saying. And I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God. So it was kind of like that, that aha moment that,
Right. Right.
oh my God, I'm getting this, I'm getting this. And
Yeah.
so I then moved up to Barcelona. And then from there, it was this crazy, like fly by the seat of my pants experience that I didn't plan. And I ended up going from Barcelona. I spent some time in Madrid. Uh, and then I got picked up by an agency in Italy. I called my parents. I'm like, I'm going to Italy. And
Hmm.
ended up in Milan. And I was with an Italian agency for a year. And then a French agency picked me up. I ended up in Paris.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, and I was and the Germans loved me, and I was making so much money. I was flying all over the world for
Hmm.
shoots. They had huge budgets back then. I went to so many amazing places, like to model, like Africa and the Seychelles and
Oh my
Fiji and
gosh.
Australia, and they were flying me like and Canary Islands, and you just like you don't think it's ever going to end. And then I got picked up by an agency in New York, and I've been gone for like 7 years.
Hmm.
And I said, maybe it's time I go home. And so I came back to New York, and that was like the 90s, and was in the city for, almost a decade. And then I was getting booked all the time to Miami.
Hmm.
And I was constantly flying to Miami for work. And every time I would leave, I'm like, fuck, I like this. I like It's like I like the weather. I don't like
Yeah.
winter. I always rented a convertible whenever I came down here, and I'm like, what am I doing? So I ended up, say, you know what, I'm going to try a season in Miami. I sublet my place, and then a month after I got here, I met my now ex-husband.
Hmm.
So he kept me here, and well, I wanted to be here, and so yeah. So anyway, we got married in 2002,
Hmm.
and yeah, so I modeled for kept working, but I was getting older. I said, I need a backup plan. Got my real estate license, and then things were going great with Douglas Elliman, and then the crash.
Hmm.
And then boom, and it just kind of like the world kind of imploded, and it was when I turned around and I'm like, wow, I'm not a kid anymore.
Hmm.
So that's why I ended up in LA, and couldn't find a job. Couldn't find a job. And I was fortunate. I had some savings. Like I said, I was making a little bit of money from the rent on my home. I was living very frugally. And my brother, because I never made it back to college.
Hmm.
So my brother said, Sue, you're now a resident of California. Go to SMC, it's free. And I go, what do you mean? And he was like, well, why don't you try and get your college degree? And I said, Ken, there's math involved with college. I said, I haven't done math since I was in high school. I said, just go take the aptitude test. You don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went to SMC, and you walk into a room, and English, I got college level English. I was like, okay, at least I know how to speak the language.
Hmm.
But math, I ended up in basic arithmetic, basic, because I didn't know how to answer any of the questions. I was like,
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. Yeah.
I, I didn't know algebra, I knew nothing. So I thought I was just going to go for my associate's degree, and mind you, so I was working part time. I was making nothing. I was working just like whatever jobs, like whatever I could get as
Hmm.
50 bucks an hour. It was, yeah, it was kind of like it was hard. Like the financial crash really affected me and a lot of people. It was really bad.
Hmm.
And so I started going to classes at SMC and taking the math. And it took me 5 semesters, but I got all the way through statistics, and I got an A in statistics, which is
Hmm.
insane to me. And the counselor, so I was going for my associate's degree, and she
Yeah.
goes, are you going to transfer? And I go, what do you mean? She goes, Susan, she's like, you got a 3.98 GPA.
Hmm.
You're a returning student. You're a woman in your 40s. You can go anywhere you want. I said, what do you mean? And she goes,
Yeah.
apply to UCLA, apply to Berkeley, and see. And I got into both. And I
Wow.
got it,
Yeah.
yeah, in my 40s. And
That's
I'm like,
amazing.
holy,
Yeah. Yeah.
holy shit. So UCLA recruited up. This is back then.
Hmm.
This is 2011, something like that, 12, 2012. You had to be matriculated. If you want to be a matriculated student, you had to go to school. You had to be on campus. Like
Okay.
they didn't do online back then.
Hmm.
So I had to make the decision to be a full-time student. So for 2 years, and I went to UCLA, and I graduated with honors
That's
with
amazing.
a
Yeah.
political science degree in my 40s. And I'm like sitting around these kids, because this school is a very prestigious college, and
Hmm.
and I went pretty much for free because I got all these grants and scholarships and shit
Wow.
because I was this 40-something-year-old woman,
Yeah.
you know, uh, as a minority and returning as a, yeah. And I mean, it cost me nothing to go to college. And I was sitting around these 19-year-old kids that were just so smart. And I'm like, how did I get here? And And I got to tell you, is the appreciation level that I had every time I walked onto that campus. I pinched myself. I
Mm,
couldn't believe I was there,
yeah.
and graduated, and I graduated with honors, and it was just like this insanity,
That's
like
amazing. Yeah, good for
it's
you. That's
it's
yeah.
crazy. No, it's just so like, again, no plan. Like
Hmm.
my life just has always been like no plan. I never had a plan. I never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. Like the
Hmm.
modeling thing just I fell into, right? And it went great for a long time. And then the college degree fell back into, and then coming back here, I got a job with this company. They hired me. That's another crazy story. I'll shorten it, but I ended up working for a tech company that they were coming up with this product for healthcare in the tech industry. I knew nothing about either.
Hmm.
So they hired me to do business development, and I'm like, it's a start. It was a startup, and they were offered me this decent salary, and they were here in Florida. So I ended up moving back to Florida. Ended up moving back into my house,
Oh
and
wow.
that's how that
It's
whole
like a
thing
full
started.
circle. Yeah.
Full circle.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy, well, I have a 4 bedroom house. I'm like, I don't want a roommate. And my neighbor was the one who said to me, you should try Airbnb. I go, what do you mean? She's like, I'm renting rooms in my house because she's divorced, and she had 2 extra rooms in her house. I
Hmm.
said, hold on a second. You're letting strangers stay in your house? She goes, Susan, try it. She's like, I'm making so much money.
Hmm.
And if you don't like it, stop.
Yeah.
So the first year that I did it, I made $60,000. I was like,
Wow.
holy shit, 60 grand
Wow.
renting rooms out of my house. And I
Yeah.
wasn't working. And I just said, I got it. And that's kind of where I go back to talking about doing this,
Mhm.
talking to a friend, and then him talking to another friend. And that's kind of how it all started. And then here I am,
So it
you know,
started in your own house initially, right?
started in
By
my own
renting out
house,
rooms. Wow.
started in my own house. And then my friend said, I've got this X studio in my give an extra ADU, and
Mhm.
I don't have time to do anything like that. Would you want to help me with that? And I was like, wait, how much would you charge? And like that was kind of the conversation. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know, and that's how it all started. So, and my big thing is staging. I love staging homes.
Hmm.
I I've been told I'm pretty good at it. I have, and I love that part of the business. I love getting a home ready for a photo shoot. It's just the best part because it's like, the creativity's there, and
Hmm.
then kind of like this thing that you kind of like create, and then you just put it out there, and you hope that people are gonna want to stay there. And
Yeah.
so far, like, it's been pretty good, you
What's cool
know.
too is you can kind of use that as your like creative outlet, right? Like however you want to stage the house,
Exactly.
whatever you want to feature in there, it's all up to you, which is pretty cool. That's
Correct.
really cool.
And
Yeah.
and I sometimes I don't have a budget. The owners are like, go for it. And
Hmm.
I could really just, do great things. And then I have people that is like, we're on such a tight budget. And it's actually really the challenging part is to make this home look fantastic with a budget.
Hmm.
And so far, it's been pretty good, and I really pride myself on that. And that's kind of why I started out with saying I turn down a lot of work. I
Hmm.
turn a lot of clients because if I have to want to represent you. I have to want to feel, like I can put my name on this, and I
Hmm.
will not put any old property on under my umbrella. It's just, and I'm not going to promise you that I'm going to make you money if your property looks like this.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah, and it's funny because I actually had a question in there about kind of comparing platforms in terms of the bigger ones like Airbnb, and then yours, which is more like a boutique, independent, kind of owner operated company. But it
well,
sounds like you have a
Airbnb
stark difference between.
Airbnb is a platform. That is the
Right.
difference. So Airbnb is a
Okay.
place card. So that's where I, as a property management company, will put my houses
Hmm.
to get revenue, to
Oh, I
find
see. Okay.
guests. So
Right.
Airbnb is not a property management company. They are the place where
Show it basically, right?
you
That's
show it, and same with
right.
Vrbo and Booking.com and
Hmm.
Expedia, and well, there's all these smaller platforms. I've tried a gamut of whatever. People contact me all the time. Oh, we really want you to be on our platform. I'm like, hey, if it doesn't cost me anything, via con Dios, sure,
Yeah.
but we'll throw our properties up there, but it's very rare.
Hmm.
It's like Hopper tried to get into the field, and
Yeah.
I don't think they succeeded.
Yeah.
I was like one of the first. I want to say I was one of the um test, I was in one of the test markets that they were trying out, and we tried it, and they didn't have it together as far as payouts, and
Hmm.
they don't verify guests, and we do a lot more than most management companies. We really protect the owner of the house. We
Hmm.
make sure that the people that are staying there are who they say they are. We require IDs. And everybody's like, oh, we're verified on Airbnb. If you read your own verification, I don't know if you're on Airbnb, but it actually says on your profile, Airbnb has verified this profile. However, we cannot guarantee this is who
Oh,
they say they are. It literally
right.
says that on Airbnb.
Right.
We're like, we don't care that you did it through Airbnb because we have our own verification
Right.
system. We
Yeah.
make sure your license isn't fake. We have a background check system that we use, make sure you're not a criminal.
Hmm.
Um, if we have direct bookings, the credit card has to match the person staying at the property, has to match the license. We're so uber careful to protect the owner,
Hmm.
and this is all from learning from mistakes,
Yeah.
we've had people that have used fraudulent credit cards and
Hmm.
chargebacks, and Stripe, who's our payment process, they've gotten way better in recognizing fraud.
Yeah.
But we go one step further. We really you learn from the mistakes,
Hmm.
and that's how I kind of think I've evolved over the course of my tenure doing this. And people always say, "Do you want to sell?" Oh, we want to acquire your company. I'm like, what am I going to do if I'm not doing this? It's like, I don't. Retiring to me is, I travel. I have a company, and well, my surgeries have kept me from traveling, but I'm a world traveler. I love to travel, and I can still have my business.
Hmm.
So no reason to retire, until I always say, until it's taken from me, then there's just no reason for me to stop doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you're having fun doing it too, right? And this is kind of your thing as well. You created it, you built it essentially, so
I
no, I
mean,
totally get that.
sometimes are better than others. I've
Yeah.
dealt with very difficult clients that,
Hmm.
I mean, listen, all things come with some pain. I've had to take people to court. I've had
Hmm.
clients that didn't want to pay me, and I win because
Yeah.
I have a very good service agreement, and you can't believe people like I had this couple hire me.
Hmm.
I did the beautiful home staging their property, and then they didn't like it, so they didn't want to pay me for my time.
Yeah.
But so they said, okay, you're fired. And then they try to go around me and go to the photographer and say, we want to use the photographs.
Hmm.
And like the photographer who works for me for years contacted me, and I was like, those mother effers. I'm like, fuck you. So I contacted them. I had my attorney contact them and say, copyright infringement.
Yeah.
No, you cannot use
Yeah.
my photographs.
Oh.
Then they would pay me for my time. I sued them, went to court, and I did it pro se because it was only for a couple of $1,000. I'm like, I'm not going to bring my attorney into this for a couple of $1,000. And the judge finally, went to them. We went to court, and they, he found in my favor for the full amount, and he said, "You hired her, you signed an agreement, and she." You paid her to stage your home. It's nowhere does it say you don't have to pay her because you don't like the way it turned out.
Yeah.
And
Doesn't
so
work
they
like that.
lost, but that happens very rarely.
Yeah.
Everybody's usually very thrilled with the photographs, and yeah, so that's kind of what I do.
Yeah, amazing. And then I just want to really quickly ask too. So since 2017, Hosty Mosty, what were some of the big challenges that some of the audience can kind of take away or learn from that you saw and experienced while building the company? It could be
Um,
general or it could be specific things in your industry, but it's want something to kind of for the audience to take away. Essentially, something to look out for, or I don't know, maybe overcome that if they experience that as well.
the one thing I can tell anybody trying to do this for a living is
Hmm.
learn the platforms. This is not about just putting up photographs on a platform and thinking it's going to run itself. You have to learn how they operate. You have to learn the ins and outs of every single platform. My first 2 years when I was doing this by myself, that means I kept my phone on
Hmm.
24/7 before I hired my first assistant. I spent hours on the phone with tech support. I don't know what does this mean? How does this work? I don't get this. Like every platform, the major players, the Booking.coms and Vrbo, and they've evolved since then, but
Hmm.
the fundamental um uh whatever the how to understand how they operate. Airbnb's algorithm has now changed. It's constantly evolving. You have to constantly stay one step ahead of how they are uh changing things. And you always have to change it up. I pay for listing optimization, and that's something, if you're new, that's a whole thing to itself, understanding what that even means. How
Hmm.
am I going to optimize my listing to make it be on page one, to rank on page one, to keep it on page one? Uh, we're always, like tweaking words, like it's not passive income anymore. It's just not what it was when I started. And so this is something you have to constantly be on top of, and really treat it like a business. You can't I tell people, maybe if somebody has one house and they really need all the money, they really do, and they can devote their time to being on just one platform.
Hmm.
Some There are a lot of people that I've actually, had a client that basically I taught her everything in 6 months. At my contracts are 6 months, and she says, "All right, I'm going to do it myself." I said, "All right," so she got all my benefit, learned everything that she needs to learn for Airbnb, respectfully,
Hmm.
and she's doing quite well. I check on her property, so she really need the money, and I was. My contract's over after 6 months, and you could give 30 days and you walk away.
Hmm.
Um, no, I've had clients for years. Some people sell their homes, whatever. It's just part of the business, right? But it's really about learning. You gotta learn. You have
Hmm.
to really take the time to learn what you're doing. This isn't like, oh, like Airbnb makes it so simple. Put on a couple of photos. Oh, tell us about your property, and click, 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 and it's live.
Right.
And all of a sudden you're like, okay, great. It's just it's not like that anymore. You have to be so careful.
Hmm.
And that's what I really took to heart when I started this. Is like, I need to learn everything about this. I have to understand what I'm doing, and if anybody asks me a question about it, I have the answer for it. So that's my best advice is, you really have to learn it, and use all the software, like everything that you could possibly use it. Yes, there's a little money investment, but anything that you can generate more income from, and it's a business write-off, use it, use it, use it.
Hmm.
And that's my best scenario. And really, like, look at others that are doing well. Look at others. What are they doing that makes their listing stand out? Um, read what they write in their properties, and look at their profiles, and look at their other listings, and look at the ratings, and see what they're doing. I mean, I
Hmm.
copied like I said, when I was looking, researching, and I found these guys in Tennessee and Nashville. I can't remember the name of the company, but they had it going, man. And this was 2016. I was like, damn, these guys are really doing great,
Hmm.
and I copied them. I took so much from their website, and just like, I was like, great. The FAQs, I'm like, oh my God, this is so smart. And then I started looking about, like, okay, what's a service agreement? What do I need to put on my service agreement?
Hmm.
I just looked around, and I copied people. I was like, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to find somebody else who's doing it before me
Oh yeah.
and just make it better.
And especially if it's working, right? Like, why would you try to change it?
And over time, I have obviously changed my agreement because things have come up. Oh my God, I have to add this. Oh shit, like that happened. Okay, I
Yeah,
really have to
yeah.
have a clause there. I got to protect myself legally. Like, I'm not a contractor. I'm not a licensed contractor. I can't be responsible if a vendor goes to your home and they screw up something in your house.
Hmm.
They're a third party vendor, and they're not my employee.
Right.
So those are kinds of things you have to have in writing. You learn the hard way.
Hmm.
And that's my best advice. So if you're going to do this, and you're going to want to try and get other people's properties uh under your name, under your profile, get a website out there, and learn the business.
Right,
You got to
right.
learn it. This is not a walk in the park. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's much harder now than it was when I started. Like, way harder. super hard.
Well,
It's
appreciate that. And then where can people find you at? Social media, website, where are the best places
Hosty
that people
Mosty,
find you?
man. Just
Okay.
any Instagram, we're on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, I don't know what else is there. Instagram, Facebook.
All
Facebook and
yeah,
Instagram
all the
are
major.
connected. I have somebody that does all that. Thank God for AI, man. It's made
Oh
life
yeah.
so much easier. We have
Yeah.
a tool called Constant Contact that
Mhm.
you could just schedule your reels and they go out over and over again. It's just about, being just constantly in people's faces.
Right.
And again, you have to pay for certain software, but AI has made things so much easier. Oh my God, when I was first started,
Hmm.
I did like the little selfie thing and I was, talking into the camera and like,
Yeah.
hi,
Yeah.
my name is Susan. I own this company. And now it's just the reel making is so easy and
Mhm.
everything is it's so easy now. Like
Yeah.
that aspect of it, if you take a few minutes to understand your life, it's really the social media aspect is so much easier,
Yeah. It seems
hate
like it's
doing
all about consistency and exposure, right? If you constantly just kind of post and get exposed out there and, get videos out there, it seems like you can really, get a lot of views and get a lot of exposure from that way. And
Correct.
it's
And
yeah,
and
yeah.
if you're and I'm remiss, I should do it more. COVID changed a lot.
Mm.
I was always going to, I was networking, going to all these, realtor conferences like local. I wasn't traveling to go to conferences, but that really makes a difference. Just talk to people.
Right.
Hey, I have this company and I don't know if you have clients that, are looking to invest in a part-time home
Hmm.
and they want to rent it out when they're not using it, call me.
Yeah.
That's really worked. And I've had so many people just refer me from even years ago. Oh, hey, so and so remembered you from when they sold a house to that person, 4 or 5 years ago. And I've got this client now, and I
Hmm.
just show up and I do my pitch and 90% of the time I get the business and 10% I don't. You just have to be in acceptance and
Yep.
you move on.
Yep. Well, Susan, I appreciate your time today. That was a fun conversation. Learned a lot today.